a dirty whorehouse because I'm in here with all you guys. All right.
What's up, party people of the SFL? How's everybody doing tonight? Welcome to episode 55 of Axis Live. I am your host, Dave Axis, and tonight is the first in a three-part series breaking down each team division by division, all right? And for the upcoming season 16 in the SFL. Tonight we tackle the Pacific Division of Los Angeles, Portland, San Diego, and Vancouver, as well as the West Division of Arizona, Denver, Las Vegas, and Sioux Falls. We've got four panelists tonight to break all that down for us, and we'll meet all of them momentarily. But we'll also have the wisest man in the SFL breaking down his pearls of wisdom for us tonight. And if there's time, if there's interest, what have you, then we will... we'll kick some after dark time maybe. We'll see how things go. We'll see if you guys are down for it and whatever. So hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I don't know what's going on in there, but I guess maybe I should probably check the party peeps in the house and see who is here. Let's take a look at the party people. Let's see. Freddie's here. Kendra Hall's in the house. My lovely wife, Pink Lisa, is with us. Hubba Breezy, Bob Funk, Nate Hall, Viv516. Bullet Boletsky's here. Bob Funk, Ray, CCR71. Who else we got? Andre Krim is in the house. Hey, Andre, we're going to talk about you tonight. What? Let's see. Doug Britton here. We're going to talk about you too, Kendra. I saw your name come up. Andy530. Coach Craven is here. Who else is here? David Leathers. Good to see you, bro. Big Dog 44 is in the house. Tom Cregan's here. Greg Soto. Tom Rahman. Frank, the franchise Wade. I miss saying that name on the show, Frank. You got to get back on here, bro. Let's see. Art Vandelay. Love all the little airplane memes and stuff you do in the Axis Live Discord server, by the way. That's fire right there. Speaking of fire, Rapid Raccoon, thanks for subscribing. That was really cool of you to do. Doug Britton, if I didn't already say it. And, Jeremy Vega's here. Jeremy, I hope you had a good birthday, bro. We talked about you. Wished you happy birthday last show. So hopefully you had a good one. All right, that's all the party people for now. I think, here's the thing. I think we're going to be we're a few usual names won't be in here tonight. We're gonna be a little short. The SFL broadcast team had to reschedule their weekly meeting to tonight at 9 p.m. And then I believe there's an SFL scrimmage going on. I don't know why people are scheduling things at Tuesday and Thursday at 9 o'clock. I mean, so rude. Unbelievable. Anyway, plus, I don't know if Mike Daggs likes me. I don't think Mike Daggs likes me anyway, so that's probably why he did it. He probably did it on purpose. In the meantime, let's check out our panel tonight. Let's get this party started. We only have 4 people here. We've got me, we've got Gunny, and we've got a panel of 4, and that's it. It's not going to be any of those shows where we've got 15, 20 people going back and forth or whatever. We are breaking down 2 divisions. So each of the panelists will have 1 team in each division, each for a total of 2 teams. To break down, we'll probably spend a good 5 minutes or so on each team. That's what I'm hoping to do anyway. So we'll see how that goes. So let's get this started. So a newcomer, I kind of feel like you were on once before, Bo Martin Jr. Maybe I'm mistaken, but if not, welcome to your very first Axis Live show. And if it's not your first, welcome to your second. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me, Dave. It's great to be here. What's up, everybody?
Hey, remind me, have you been on here before?
I think you had me on for like I wasn't on as a panelist or anything. You just asked me a question or two.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, perfect. Good enough. Well, welcome to the show. Looking forward to your rookie Axis Live debut tonight. What's up? What's up? Also, we have with us tonight a veteran of the show, the general manager for the London Knights. Back with us tonight, Mr. Chad Rowland is in the house. Chad, what up? What up?
How's it going? I actually now know what it's like to be in the LSG locker room since everybody on this panel is an LSG. So it's dirtier than I thought it would be.
You love every second of it. Don't lie.
Yeah, you're probably right. It's going to take weeks to get this stench off.
Oh my goodness! Oh, is that why I heard that bad word when you guys were not supposed to be talking?
Maybe.
I'll have to play that back. So for those of you who heard Chad Rowland say bad words, he apologizes. Let's see here. Speaking of veterans of the show, he's probably I guess he's probably got the 3rd most shows out of everybody. Yeah, Eagle Mondavi. You heard it. I see it. Everybody's saying it. That's hilarious. Boom. Look who came in. Look at that. I'm an effing problem. Mark, what's up? Good to have you here. Oh, and Hugo just popped in too. Good to see you guys. And I thought I saw Crazy Eights on there. Anyway, a veteran of the show, probably 3rd most shows if I had to go back and tally them all up. One of the sexiest voices in the SFL, host of his own podcast, and the head coach for Lone Star Glory. Coach Craven's back with us. Coach, how you doing tonight, bro?
I'm doing good. Greetings from the wet and dreary Northwest.
Really? You get a lot of rain? Is it just dark? Is it both?
Whole lot of rain. Whole lot of rain, and it's just gray as all get out outside.
Very nice.
Or, as we call it around here, winter.
Or as I say, or Wednesday or Tuesday or whatever, right?
Right.
All right, Coach, thanks for coming back. Appreciate you being here, bro. Well, we might as well continue with the Lone Star Glory thing, as Chad pointed out to everybody. Also with us, back again, he's becoming a regular now on the show. I might have to give him that regular tag. We'll see. The offensive coordinator and wide receiver for the glorious Lone Star Glory, Greg Soto's back with us. Greg, what's up?
Hello, David. Thank you for inviting me for 2021 show. Xinyan Kuai Luo. Happy New Year. I haven't seen you in over a year. What's up, party people?
Oh, my goodness. There's your party people right there. Oh, that gets me every time. All right, moving on. The wisest man in the SFL, who you'll be hearing from in just a little bit. Gunny's back with us. Gunny, how you doing? What's going on?
Chad, welcome to Denton, Texas, headquarters of Lone Star. We're glad you can make it with us.
It's pretty much Lone Star plus Chad. That's it. That's the show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Lone Star plus Chad. All right. Now that you guys know everybody, and I see all the people, all the extra people popping in the house. Deion Hawkins just popped in. I saw Joey Schwint is in here. Who else? I feel like I saw one more that snuck in. Maybe that's it. Dwayne, I think, did get in there, so good for him. All right, so let's start talking divisional play. One of the cool things that I really like about this season's schedule is the fact that the last game for everybody this season will be a divisional game. So everything's going to come right down to the wire. The last week, I don't know how Cam is going to decide to put which game on television and in what time slot, because there's probably going to be every game is at the end of the season is probably going to have something to do with positional standings, making the playoffs, not making the playoffs, something like that. So good luck, Cam, with that. That'll be fun. In the meantime, we're going to break all these divisions down. We're going to start with the Pacific Division. We're going to work our way out west. We're going to start in the west. Work our way out east over the next 3 shows. So the first division is the Pacific Division. Los Angeles, Portland, San Diego, and Vancouver. I've asked, and if you guys check your, we added some, we got graphics for every team tonight. We'll have them for all 3 shows. You'll see it'll tell you what team. It'll show where they finished last season, if they're an expansion team, a couple key free agents, couple key rookies, that kind of thing. So if you're not on the graphic, I apologize. There's only so much room for so many names. So the first person I'm going to bring in to talk about the Los Angeles Lycans and their very first year in the SFL, they are an expansion team this season, is Coach Craven. So, Coach, I'm going to let you take it away, and this goes for all of the panelists. I will just probably interject questions and do follow-up stuff with you, but for the most part, what I want you guys to do for me, and so the crowd knows what to expect, is to break down this team going into season 16 for me. So, Coach, kick things off.
Okay, I can do that. I think the first thing to think about with LA is I don't look like at this team like an expansion team, air quotes. They've got a lot of vets. They brought in vets at nearly every position. And one of the things I like about that, especially defensively, they can run, other than running a 3-4, which, not very many people do that. They can run anything they want on defense. They've got contract players at every position. And that's, I think that can make a big difference. That could be really interesting going forward. Their defense should be really good, frankly. And if Sully is still running the defense, I think he was defensive coordinator over in Carolina. If he's still doing that, they're in good shape. So, expansion team, not really. Weaknesses, they're not loaded on offense. And that's not to say that they're bad there, but they only have 1 wide receiver over 90. They should be able to run the ball, and they've got some good players, but I don't think they'll be able to get into shootout. Like if they're playing Vancouver and Vancouver's on, like they are sometimes, then, they're going to have to get some turnovers. That I don't see them dropping 40 easily. Not to say that they won't be able to do it, but, I like I say, they put their resources into a defense more than offense in the offseason. Backbone players, it's going to be Sully. It's going to be Ash Odom clone. Can't think of his name right now. Davius Reed.
Johnson or something.
Yeah. Thank you. And then they're going to rely on that defense. They're going to need turnovers to get a lot of opportunities to score. And then for the rookies, this is an interesting point here. Chris Lee could do a lot. They're going to have I expect to see a lot of single back 3 wide formations because they don't have a contract fullback. They don't have a second tight end. You don't want to put money on the bench very often. I expect to see Chris Lee out there quite a bit and get a lot of opportunities. He's probably returning kicks. I don't know. Maybe they have one of the DBs that's doing it with the return specialist. I don't know. But probably Chris Lee is going to return kicks. He's going to get a lot of activity. The other 2 rookies depends on who's the dime back, because whoever the dime back is, he could be on the bench a fair bit, just depending on what they're going up against, unless they make a concerted effort. And that's one of the things this team's going to have to be okay with. They're going to have to understand that sometimes not everybody's going to play a lot. If they're playing a team that's going to run and they're going to be in base defense a lot, the nickel and dime backs aren't going to play a whole lot. If they're playing a team that's spread out, third linebacker is not going to play a whole lot unless they unless they run a 33 defense, and then the second defensive tackle is not going to play a lot. So, that's just part of the deal. But like I said, I still see that as a strength because they can run any defense they need to.
Well, let me jump in there, Coach, for a second. So
Sure.
let me add one thing I want to add is because there was enough room on the graphic, I wasn't able to put Peanut Say on there. What do
Hmm.
you think? He's playing free safety, so that gives him another rookie at defense. Andre Krim
Hmm.
comes over from Mexico City, but he moves from defensive tackle to defensive end, right?
Hmm.
So as you look at all these new players, I mean, you talked about the backbone, and we're talking. When you talk about all the new players, both free agents and rookies, who do you see making the biggest impact on this team? And before you answer, let me just throw out there, Jeremy. That's how I keep you listening to the show all night. You have no idea when I'm going to throw your team in there. So there you go. What do you think, Coach?
When you ask who's going to make the biggest impact, you talking about rookies? You talking about
Rookies
players?
and free agents, new guys that weren't that are not nobody that played with Chicago because they're kind of playing with half the same team.
Right.
We know who Sully is already, but I'm talking about year player like an Andre Krim or a rookie like Chris Lee or Mike Scott or even Peanut for that matter.
I think the easy answer is Chris Lee. I just think he's going to get a lot of action because of how the team is constructed, and so he's the guy I see. He's the guy I see having a chance to, maybe depending on how they use him, having a chance for a rookie of the year, things like that. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I don't know, but he's just going to have more opportunities than I think any of the new guys to have a noticeable big impact.
Right. I'm going over their roster right now, and I'm looking at a lot of familiar names. Right. Thomas Rahman Jr.,
Mm-hmm.
Sully, of
Mm-hmm.
course, Jack Flash, Rochelle, Buddy Blaze, Rob Ems, Mar Rivers, Jack Hacksaw. I think he's in his second year. Ryan Yosef. This is a very, like you said at the beginning, a very veteran stacked team. And yes, let
Mm-hmm.
me apologize to LA. You're not an expansion team. I think you guys were the favorite when you were running for expansion team to get an expansion bid. Then the Chicago thing happened. You bought the team. So I apologize for using the wrong terminology, but I think that kind of goes to your point, right, Coach? That with bringing those veterans over from Chicago, landing a few free agents, and having the leadership of Tom Rahman and Ray Ray and them, this is a veteran squad.
Absolutely, absolutely. And your point about them being a relocation, you could make some comparisons to us last season, but they've got more veterans than we did. When you look at our roster last season, we only had a a handful of guys that had more than one season in the league. They've got several with multiple seasons in the league. I don't think I'm sure they're going to be overlooked. And when people say expansion, they'll keep saying expansion. They were calling us an expansion for most of the season as
Right,
well. They're
right,
going to
right.
keep saying expansion, and they're going to overlook them. But I think that's going to be dangerous. Uh, LA's not going to be an easy out for anybody. I just don't see that happening. Things have got to go completely sideways for that to be the case. This is a veteran team. This is actually quite a veteran team, and I think it's short-sighted to think otherwise.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Any last notes before we move on? And I think it'll be interesting too. In a couple teams, we'll be talking about a true expansion team in San Diego and the difference in the roster build between LA and San Diego. But do you have any other last thoughts on LA before we move on?
Well, just that there are a lot of ifs on their schedule. When you look at their schedule, there's only a handful, maybe four teams that didn't have significant changes. I think there was only one, Charleston, that didn't have any changes. But a couple of them, Atlanta had one, and losing Kendra was a big deal. But they got a fantastic second tight end. That signals a philosophy change for them. Um, there's a lot of teams with a lot of changes. Houston took some hits, all of those things. And if any of those teams are struggling with the changes, that's an opportunity for LA to, and I'm using the air quotes here, surprise people and be in the conversation for the playoffs at the end of the season.
Wow.
But like I said, a lot of ifs on the schedule, a lot of ifs. So,
Right. Well, and
you know,
at the end of the show, you guys know how we do when we do the weekly shows during the season. We always do the pick'ems and we make the panel pick. We're actually going to have the panel tonight pick how they think each of these divisions is going to come out at the end of the show. So make sure you stay tuned, stick around for that action right there. All right, so that's LA in a nutshell. Let's move on. And by the way, I'm doing these teams in alphabetical order so that way nobody's feelings get hurt. Except for Denver, I'm going to put them last at the bottom of the alphabet just to mess with Jeremy. So there you go. What up, Jeremy? All right. So let's move on to Portland. Second year team. They went 2-10 last year, Greg. But I think we saw a lot more potential in this team than their 2-10 record reflects. How do you see them going into season 16?
Yeah, we sure did. I mean, I think they are going to be better. And you'll see my prediction later on and later on in the show. Yeah, they were 2-10 last year. One thing I did reach out to Nelson, and he kind of gave me some, just a few insights, definitely of what they want to do this year. But keeping, some of the strengths that they have is, their coaching staff and their front office, especially with a brand new team. If you can kind of keep that intact going into year 2 and maybe even into year 3, watch out for Portland. Not saying that they're not going to have a decent record this year, but I think, building a team, building a brand new franchise, and putting all the right parts in place, you're going to have a little bit of turnover the first year, because it's an expansion team. Really, this year is really where you start seeing the fruits of their labor of the front office and the coaching staff come together. It's the second year for Matt South. And now to, one of the strengths is I think their running game, which I'm going to talk here shortly. Some of the weaknesses, I look back, of course, there's only like 1 year to look back at things and how you're going to project a team to be. So it's really, you got to look at this. The offense was the worst offense for points per game average in season 15. They only average around 12 points per game. Defense, again, was the worst in net points with, 190 point difference.
Wow.
Which was 76 points away from the second worst team in net points, which was London. So look, you're 2-10 season 15. Worst certain areas in offense, worst in certain areas in defense. You have to be better. I just believe that they're just going to be better. The player changes. They had a few. Connor Weston went out. I believe Amon Takis, I believe, the linebacker, also went out. There's a few other people that went out. But you had players come in like Khalil Thomas. He's one of these people that played in Chicago last year. Now he's not on the defensive line anymore. He's an outside linebacker, which is really what he wanted to play. So now you have a happy player coming into a position that he's going to start. He loves his position. Same thing. Now he has his buddy, Benjamin Warner, also now that's with him there in Portland. He's now changed as well from tight end to wide receiver. And actually his rating's even better as a wide receiver now than I believe it was at tight end, I believe when he was in Chicago. And you have now a solidified more of a running game going into this year with Ezekiel Love. Moving Truzman over to fullback, Ezekiel Love there as a running back. That's something to watch out for. And again, I said they got a solid front office. No changes in the coaching staff. Midway through the year, I believe last year, Art Vandelay got the defensive coordinator position. He's, I think he's going to make dividends. He's going to make good on being the defensive coordinator there. I think it's going to continue to solidify that group. You have players there that have played in the league before, like South. Majors is in there, Truzman, again, Warner, Vandelay, Valentine. I think a lot of the offense, and that's where I think where later on in my prediction, I think they are going to score more. Now, I'm a little looking at their roster. I'm a little worried about their defense, but I do feel that 10 points per game will be up substantially this year, which will keep them in games, a lot closer games,
So
and
let me ask a couple questions about that real quick, especially about the offensive side of the ball. So you mentioned the fact that Truzman goes back to his natural position. You bring in a true running back in Ezekiel Love. I think that right there, right off the bat, that helps them. That helps their running game, which benefits their passing game. Obviously, it opens up their passing game. They bring in Benjamin Warner to go along with Gene Valentine and Art Vandelay. I think they have solid offense. Khalil Thomas coming in with Mel Davis at linebacking. They already had one of the best linebacking crews last season anyway, and they improved it. So you see that you're predicting that they'll bump up 10 points or so on that average. What do you think that will translate into wins though for them?
I'll leave that till the end of the show on my predictions. I think it's going to be they're going to okay, I'll give it to you now because later
Well, I mean,
on
you
in
don't have
the
to
show
give me
we're
the whole
gonna do how
prediction.
we-
I just want to say
Yeah.
in a thing. Or you think they'll get a few more victories? Do you think they're going to get a lot more victories?
No, I think they'll get a few more victories. I think they will miss the playoffs, but I think they will get more victories. They will make it harder on some teams. Now, I don't think they're going to be in last place, either. But I do feel that they're going to get a little bit more wins. They brought in they brought another linebacker, Gary Clem from San Jose Flight as a rookie.
Yep.
They drafted him and the Madison Lynx guy, the cornerback, Leo Morris, as well, to help out their defense, which, again, I just stated earlier, I'm a little iffy on their defense, but I think if they can score more points, that 2-10 record could be somewhere around 5-7, 6-6.
I mean, I'm looking at this roster, and it's just name after name after
Yeah.
name after name that is well known in the SFL, that has played well, that has had great seasons before. I don't see any reason why Portland doesn't do much better this season at all either.
Right.
Before we move on to it looks like it's going to be San Diego next. Greg, any last thoughts on this Portland team other than telling us your predictions?
No, like I said, I think I'm going to pin them at 5-7. I think they're going to go 5-7. Which, look, there's teams that were in the SFL for more than 1 year that can't get to 5-7. So I think this is continuing to build and build and build. I think year 3 of the front office and coaching staff staying together, then I believe that's when you're talking this team will have potential to get into the playoffs.
Here's the thing. I'm looking at last year's standings. 6 teams went 5-7, and if Portland jumps from 2-10 to 5-7, they could potentially jump up 10 spots in the standings, which is quite a bit.
Correct. Yep.
So, all right, last question. I'm gonna let you go. Does Art Vandelay make an amazing laid out catch like he did in the minor league this season? Does he put it together and do that this season?
No, lightning only strikes once.
Okay. All right. All right. Thanks. Well, there you go, Art Vandelay. You heard it here first, buddy. All right, Greg. Thank you, bro. Moving on to San Diego. First of all, it's my favorite city in America. I lived there for 11 years. I absolutely love San Diego. I love what they're doing over there with Optimus and Jacob. I think they're putting together a solid team. The issue, Bo Martin Jr., is they are an expansion team. They had, I think, they were one of those teams that had some of the most rookies drafted, so they're going to be a young team. I think behind DC and Houston, or maybe Tulsa, so they're the 4th most draft picks, so they're going to be a young team. Give me your breakdown for them for season 16.
Yeah, that's kind of exactly where I wanted to start out. Is that they are going to be an expansion team, so we need to make sure that we kind of temper our expectations. Now, as far as expansion teams go, to be honest, I think San Diego did really well as far as the recruiting that they did to bring over some phenomenal pieces from other teams. I don't know what Jacob Clear was whispering with that sweet Australian accent of his, but he was doing some work to get some of these free agents to come over to San Diego, and so they've got a really great nucleus, and perhaps it had a lot to do with Optimus Klein. Of course, we all know everybody in the SFL knows the reputation that Optimus Klein brings over. Huge loss for Florida, and so I know Florida, hates to even hear me talk about that, but everybody knows that Optimus wanted to have a team of his own, and that was his dream to have that team. And so he's going to bring with him that leadership. And I think that carried a lot of weight with the amount of free agents that wanted to come over to join in San Diego and be the start of something great. So, you've got a great Jalen Wells who came over. Jalen wanted to get a few more snaps at the running. He wanted to be the starting running back, and he wanted some more carries. He only had 460 some yards last season and 3 touchdowns, and so he was barely used in the passing game, just 115 yards. So he wanted to get more involved in the passing game as well as have that starting role at running back. So Jalen was a huge acquisition. I expect great things out of him this year. I think he's gonna break wide open, and he's gonna probably be in the top 10 in carries out there as long as they can keep him going.
So you're okay. So you're right. So right, you get Optimus Klein automatically, obviously, because he takes over the team. Jalen Wells was a humongous pickup, I think. But also on the offensive side of the ball, you get Ryan Owens and Connor Weston, brothers that wanted to play together. So that's going to help their offense quite a bit right out the gate. As I'm looking at the defensive side of the ball, though, Bo, I'm seeing a few familiar names. I see Jacob Clear. I see Pete Mitchell back in the SFL. The number one draft pick, the number one overall draft pick in Mike Ryan, and then also picking up Devin King at linebacker. When you take kind of this mix match of a few old veterans and a bunch of these rookies, what are the expectations in San Diego this season?
Well, that actually perfectly leads into my areas of weakness because number one I have on my list is a secondary. All apologies to Jacob. I'm sure he's going to do his best to get those guys up to speed. But, let's be honest, he's working with, albeit the first round pick and Mike Ryan. I'm sure Mike's going to do phenomenal things, but he is a rookie, so he's going to take a while to get up to speed. Also, too, you've got back there Ray Lanero at the free safety position, another rookie. And so it's going to leave a little bit of holes. I expect probably a little bit of exploitation with the deep ball against San Diego, just because these guys are going to take a little bit of time to get up to speed. Jacob's going to have to be on skates trying to keep everything together with him and Ron Hoff because they're going to have to try to help. And I do expect, I'd say probably at least 3 picks out of Mike Ryan, as long as it's not against LSG. But he's going to take some time, so but they're going to have a defense, and I believe that Devin King has good family roots too, because if I remember correctly, he's related to Peanut. No, that's a different one. I'm sorry. So but I believe their defense is going to come along nicely, but it's just going to take some time. So there'll probably be some really tough losses for them, at least in the first few weeks. Maybe they can get up to speed later on, but there's going to be some pretty ugly losses.
Yeah, Gunny just put in the chat, my boy Ron Hoff in the Mavericks secondary. That will actually help them for sure. One of the things that sticks out to me, and Denzel Maverick coming back into the league. So they had a few guys, Denzel Maverick, Pete Mitchell, I think one more coming back into the league to come play for San Diego. That's Optimus, obviously with his reach, bringing people out of retirement. Here's something that interesting, though, Bo, that stands out to me as I look at their roster. And Lone Star struggled with this last year. That's why it stuck out to me, is that we had to settle for a lot of field goals. We had a very young offense. We had some red zone woes, if you will. So they make sure they get one of my favorite names in all the SFL, Nico Cappuccino, to drill a lot of field goals. You sense that being the case in San Diego, like it was with Lone Star last season, that they may have to settle for a lot of field goals?
Yeah, and that's going to be another challenge too. And again, you must be reading my notes ahead of me there. You must be reading my notes ahead of me. Anyway, so yeah, Dave. I wonder too how much penetration they're going to get. Especially with again going back to a rookie. You've got a rookie fullback, and I wonder how, along with a rookie, not a rookie quarterback, but a new to the team quarterback, and Javier Vasquez. But I wonder how much space Nick Hogland's going to be able to open up, for Jalen Wells, and it just really it concerns me a bit that they may not be able to get into the end zone as much as they like, and so they may end up settling for quite a few field goals.
Yeah, I think the key. Well, first of all, yeah, but Javier is only a second-year quarterback, also, so that there's something to be said there. But I think for me personally, the number one thing is going to be, how does Jalen Wells transition from fullback to running back? If he does it like all the other transitional fullbacks did it last season, then they definitely going to struggle. But if he can make a better transition, if Optimus and them have figured it out over there, then I think he could be the key to them winning more games than we're probably thinking right now. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, you're right, and it's all about that transition. Jalen was one of the higher echelon fullbacks. But of course,
Right.
there's always that ramp up time that you need anytime you're switching to running back, because it is a different position. I mean, they're similar, but it is different. So there's a lot of things that Jalen is going to have to work on progression wise to get himself up to speed to compete with the higher up, like the Reggie Streeters, and to try to get into that caliber. So I mean, I think he's got the capabilities to do so, but it's going to take some time. It's going to take a lot of getting knocked down and getting back up, because one other thing too is, of course, they don't have an offensive line to try to make up some holes there for Jalen to run through. So there's going to be a lot of tough sledding. I anticipate that there's probably going to be a lot of passing going on from Javier, because they're probably going to be playing from behind a lot. So it really just concerns me how much opportunity that Jalen Wells is going to get. Everybody here, has great potential, but of course, like I said at the outset, it's an expansion team. I do believe this team will do well. I don't know that it'll necessarily be in year one, but as long as they can keep this team together, everybody in this team they got a really great nucleus, and they'll be good in the future.
Awesome. Yeah, I would say they've got some decent receivers. They've got a world-class tight end and Optimist. So Javier's got some targets. So if he can make that work, then maybe San Diego ends up being better than we're thinking right now. Either way, Bo, thanks for the breakdown. Appreciate it. We'll be back to you guys in a few minutes.
Absolutely.
You got it. All right, let's move on to Vancouver. Chad, here's the deal. I think the train of thought for most people in the league is this is Vancouver's division to lose, and we'll talk more about that when we do the predictions. They were 8-6, including playoff record. They were the 7th seed in the playoffs. They pick up a couple key receivers. They only needed a couple draft picks. What is that? What does all of that mean for Vancouver going into this season 16?
Well, I mean, it's gonna be pretty interesting to see how they play out, because having an 8-6 record, they lost some key pieces. Of course, losing a legend like Rich Pratchard, that's impossible to replace. But they did a good job by picking up Kendra. Coming over from Atlanta, she's going to be somebody that can really step in and play in that role immediately. I like the pickup of Gerald Giudice as well, a defensive tackle, kind of helping that defensive line. And then, like I have said over and over again, I think that I believe they had one of, if not the best draft in all of the SFL. As GM of the London Knights, I could say that Josh Farnsey was very, very high on my board. He was the top linebacker in my mind in the draft. And then Achilles Papatonis was a guy that when I was going to be the head coach at the Lexington Miners, he was going to be my defensive end. And just having conversations with Achilles, he was a great guy. So they just had a tremendous offseason, and all that's going to accumulate into probably what I guess is going to be another deep run.
So as I'm looking at their roster, right? So, you talked about Gerald and Kendra, which are phenomenal pickups. Andy Hamilton at wide receiver. But I see a lot of familiar names. I see Robert Redford. I see Brett Killian. I see Tom Pepper. I see, who else? Mark Lopez and Nate Hall coming back to actually play strong safety this way. I see Prococo on there. It's a team that, is it just me, or does it seem like they filled more holes than we actually think they did with all those names? Or what's the deal there? Because I see a lot of names that are familiar, but then I see, but I'm looking at rookies, and I'm seeing Nate come over, and I'm seeing Andy fill a hole. So is it kind of I don't know. I'm not sure how to read this team. It's almost like, yes, they have the veterans, but then they also had to fill a lot of holes. I'm not sure how to read this team.
Yeah, and that's what you have to look at, because obviously Prococo was a defensive end last season. He moves over to the offensive line. Nate Hall moving over to strong safety. And they did have some holes to fill, but it is pretty much the same team when you're looking at it. I mean, Drew Hamilton must have left or retired. Andy Hamilton moves over to wide receiver, kind of fills that spot as well. So, yeah, and you're right. I mean, it does look like they filled a lot, but really they kept a lot of their team too.
Nate Hall says strong safety number 2 behind Major Key. Okay, I see that. Yeah, I see that, Nate. I think somebody else said something in the chat. Who's the GM in Vancouver? It's Prococo, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, it is Prococo.
Yeah. Oh, somebody said Pseudo is the GM. Who said that? Hugo? That was funny, bro. That was good stuff right there. All right, we're going to talk about Vancouver and if it's their division to lose or not later. So don't spoil anything yet, Chad. Don't give anything away, but talk to me about what kind of play is required from Tom Pepper this season to make this Vancouver offensive go and make a deep run, like you mentioned at the top of what you were saying?
I mean, to me, I've always been critical of Tom Pepper. I mean, when the highest number of interceptions in the league is 31, and that was done by 4 people, and Tom Pepper has 30, you got to change something. I mean, it shows that they take a lot of shots down the field and stuff, but I don't know if he doesn't have enough arm strength or what's going on with him, but that's a lot of picks, especially for a team that is going deep into playoffs. When you're going up against these teams like Baltimore and Louisiana and Sioux Falls, I mean, you got to make sure that your stuff is in order. And if he does not, and Denver, I forgot to add Denver in there, but if he ends up, cutting that number down even by like 10, then we could be talking about a deep, deep run in the playoffs for Vancouver.
So I'm looking at the wide receivers, right? So we know Andy loves to chuck the ball downfield, and he usually has all these great high-valued wide receivers. Is it just me, or does it seem like his wide receivers are a little lower value starting out this season? And is that going to put the pressure on Robert Redford? And if people are coming for Robert Redford and Tom Peppers, starts throwing interceptions again, what does that mean for Vancouver out the gate?
You know what? I think it could put a little bit of pressure on Redford, but I think Redford already has enough pressure anyway, But with the offense that they run, it's kind of like what Mighty was saying in the chat. They have a high risk, high reward offense. So I think the people they brought in, Kendra and Andy, I think they're going to do just fine in those positions.
Okay. Before we go to Gunny here in a moment and get his pearls of wisdom, any other last thoughts? Anything I didn't ask? Anything we didn't cover about Vancouver that you want to mention?
Well, we've been talking a while about the offense, but the defense, like I said, I mean, they moved Prokoko over, Nate Hall moved in a different spot, but really, I mean, there hasn't really been a lot of changes. A lot of the key people are coming back. So look for this defense to be really solid once again this season.
You know what? You're absolutely right. We almost talked exclusively about the offense because it's an Andy Hamilton team, right? That's what you think. Vancouver is going to be an offensive team. That's hilarious that you said that. All right. Well, no offense there, defense in Vancouver, but when you have an offensive-minded team like Andy Hamilton usually likes to have in Vancouver, that's what you end up talking about most of the time. All right, Chad, thanks for. Also, by the way, I just want to let everybody know, Eddie Gage was supposed to be on the show tonight. He had flight issues. And his flights changed at the last minute, and he wasn't able to land in time for the show. So Chad is filling in brilliantly, I might add, for Eddie tonight. So Chad, I just want to thank you for subbing in for Eddie at the last second like this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, Gunny, are you around anywhere?
I'm here.
I know you're always around somewhere, checking something out somewhere.
I was in a foxhole talking to Brett Killian.
Why does that not surprise me at all? If you're ready to rock and roll, you can start whenever you're ready.
Tonight we're going over the recap of the Season 14 second-round draft. Who is still in the league and where are they today? At the 21st pick by St. Louis was Chase Earl. He is now at Louisiana. The 22nd pick was Davidson Joseph for Carolina. He's still there. 23rd pick, Alex Constantine, Arizona. He's still there. 24th pick, Charleston, Yogi Barr. He is now at Lone Star Glory. The 25th overall pick, Rylan Caudell. He's at Lone Star Glory at offensive lineman. 26th pick, Charleston also had Joseph Sabolka. He's at Charleston still. 27th pick, offensive lineman, Queen City, Griffin King. I'm not sure where he is right now. I don't think he has a player, but I think he's still coaching somewhere, but I'm not positive on that one. The 28th pick was Las Vegas. Kicker Rob Ems. He's now with the Lycans. 29th pick, Joseph Camp, Sioux Falls. He's still with the Sparrows. 30th pick, Houston, linebacker Shane Easley. I do not know who he is. 31, Tulsa, wide receiver Jacob McCall. He is the third wide receiver in Arizona. 32nd pick, Chicago, Ron Hall. He is now in the secondary with the San Diego Mavericks. 33rd pick, Atlanta. Defensive end, Tim Cleveland. I'm not sure where he is anymore. Florida with the 34th pick, punter, Marcus Agrippa. He is the star punter, the first one ever, and he's still with Florida. 35th pick, Mexico. Defensive end, Broccoli. He's still with the Aztecs. 36th pick, Seattle Tyrants. Kicker, Whistle Jones. He now plays for the Carolina Skyhawks. 37th pick, Denver. Tight end, Jeremy Mosley. He's still with the Nightwings. 38th pick, St. Louis. Outside linebacker, Mark Gronick. He's still with the Gladiators. 39th pick, Carolina. Wide receiver, Flash Furman. Not sure if he's still in the league anymore. 40th pick, Arizona. Wide receiver, Roscoe Justice. Not in the league anymore. So out of those 20, 15 of the 20 are still in the league. 8 of those are still on the same team. On Thursday, we will do a recap of round number 3. And with that, that is all. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
All right, Gunny. Thank you for that, and thank you for all the detail. Ray, you were a little late on that, girl. You got to do it before. I don't know what. You know what? We're gonna have to fire Ray from the job that we never gave her. All right. Let's move on back to our divisional conversations. The West Division. We just got done. If you just joined us, we ouch, poor Ray. We just finished previewing the Pacific Division of LA, Portland, San Diego, and Vancouver. If you missed that, we are getting ready to break down the West Division, beginning with Arizona and Greg Soto. Greg, Arizona, everybody knows and everybody loves the Hall of Famer Eddie Gage. Last season was his first season taking over the offensive reins. He had some high points. He had some low points. I think they just missed a playoff spot, if I'm not mistaken. What do you see offensively for them, as well as overall, obviously, but more importantly, offensively versus last season, and how do you see them doing overall in season 16?
Yeah. So last season they went 5-7. The biggest thing that I see right off the bat strengths is DJ Moses the second. 1,300 plus yards. First time, I think that was his third season. First time over 1,000 yards. He was, I believe, 7th in rushing yards per game. I think for this season, you need to continue to feed that man. I think that's going to help Ashley Jackson, which is also a strength. And I briefly chatted with Eddie earlier in the day before he got on the plane. Keeping their front office and coaching staff intact again, same thing like with Portland, is gonna bring dividends to Eddie in Arizona, and also their secondary. It's like you said it. Eddie. And I'll talk about it here in a minute. Bringing in another cornerback for Mana Kanaka, leaving, and Anthony Wayo as well, leaving. He brings in some people, the rookies that he drafted. So, some of the weaknesses, though, that I do see is, and I think this goes, and I'll talk a little bit deeper into this, is, their third down conversion. They were 8th, I believe, in third down, 8th worst, I should say. In third down conversion, they were just below 50%. Also turnovers were pretty much, turnover differential was equal. I think we talk about his defense, but I think the equation of offense and defense and coming out at the end of the year with 0 turnover difference is a big deal. And also, I know this is going to raise some eyebrows, and again, this is the player, this is not the person. I'm looking at stats. So I was looking at what Ashley Jackson did, I believe in her first 2 seasons with Tulsa. I believe she was with Tulsa, in the first 2 seasons. So this is going now into her second season with Arizona. I believe
her third season.
It's her third season.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's her third season. So if you take her first 2 seasons with Tulsa, Her QBR was better. Her passing yards were better. Her touchdowns, she had threw more touchdowns. So it's going to depend if that quarterback play is going to be the strength or the weakness. If we see Ashley Jackson of Tulsa, I believe that Arizona gets into the playoffs easier than struggling to get into the playoffs like they did season 15. I think it totally hinges on that. They're better stats. So is the player declining? Is it, Eddie, in year 2 doing, better play calling for Ashley, and get her numbers back to where they were when she was in Tulsa. You had some player changes. Like I said, Monica Naka, Anthony Wayo leaving. But you have Everett Garrison coming in. You have TJ Punk coming in.
Yeah.
You have Larry Barr also now there. I think that is going... TJ Punk is going to help Ashley.
It's a huge pickup for them, yeah.
It's massive. I think it is massive. I think they're 3 wide receivers that they have there. I believe the Hands brothers,
Yep.
I believe,
Jacob
are there.
Yep.
Yeah, it's James and Donnie, I believe.
Yep.
James and Donnie. BJ Loveless, Iverson Gamble, Eddie Gage in that secondary. If Ashley can get the number productivity that she got in Tulsa, and Eddie can bring these guys together like the new rookies, Bernard Smith IV from the Memphis River Runners, defensive tackle Max Knight, again from the Memphis River Runners. If we can get that turnover difference on the positive side, and Ashley can go back to form to when she played with Tulsa, I believe that Arizona will make the playoffs. Their goal is to make the playoffs, win the division and make the playoffs. But I believe they go from a 5-7 team to a 7-5 team. And the road is easier to get into the playoffs with being 7-5.
Right. It may be harder in their division, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But let me jump in for a second. So I agree. I think Ashley has great weapons. She's got the Hands brothers. She's got Jacob McCall. Adding TJ Punk is humongous. And then you can always, hand the ball off to one of the best running backs in the league, right? So offensively, they're good. They've got a few rookies on defense. I love Bernard Smith. I think that's a great pick. Max Knight. I think Arizona had a great draft, even though they only had a couple players to pick up.
Yeah, I think Bernard Smith is going to be a stud.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I see, but we still have a lot of the same names on defense. So Mark Mello's there, Joey Tropicana is there, B.J. Lovelace is still there, E.J. DeQ is still there. What we got? Iverson Gamble, Constantine. Let me see who else is there. Oh, have you heard this guy called Eddie Gage? I mean, when you look at their roster and you look at the offensive weapons they have, and you see the defensive guys they have minus a couple rookies, which is that's everybody. That's not a big deal. I don't see how they don't make the playoffs, Greg. To be honest with you,
I know what you're saying, but you also have now Sioux Falls directly in their division and Denver.
Denver.
If the SFL wanted to give Eddie a gauntlet after going 5-7 in his second year, going into this year, putting Sioux Falls and Denver in his division,
it's criminal, man. It's criminal.
It's hard. It's going to be really, really hard. But again, I think they're going to go 7-5. I hope some way they do get into the playoffs. If they play as hot as their Sector 6 store looks, with all the merchandise they have and all the stuff that Eddie's promoting in there, they'll make it to the playoffs.
Well, I agree with you. I think that they are playoff bound. I wouldn't be surprised. Man, does that mean the West might put 3 teams in the playoffs? Is that even possible? We'll talk about that later. Any other last thoughts? What's that?
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Any last thoughts or anything we didn't cover before I move on to Denver? Oh, did I say Denver, Jeremy? My bad.
No, I was looking from the chat. I think I fired enough shots to not get me definitely on a couple of shows besides this one.
Well, you had to cover two teams that have two show hosts in Nelson and AJ. So this might be the only show you get on from now on, bro.
Yeah, I think I'm not going to be invited to anybody else's show after tonight.
That's amazing. All right, Greg. Thank you, bro. Appreciate it, man.
Right.
All right. All right. Well, at Jeremy Vega's request, I'm going to go ahead and do this in alphabetical order anyway and move on to Coach. Coach, Denver was the number 1 seed. I think everybody pretty much predicted they would probably go to the championship game. They fall 1 game short. They make it to the semis. They did just win the title a couple seasons ago, though, so it's not, a terrible letdown. They didn't have a very active offseason because they didn't really need one. They got 1 free agent. They pick up 1 rookie. So are we pretty much just looking at the exact same Denver team that was the number 1 seed in season 15?
Well, I think I speak for a lot of people, Dave, when I say the thing I'm looking forward to the most is seeing that old god of disco, Echo Love, play more than 3 games. I think everybody wants to see that. I think we're excited to see him turn in his bell bottoms and just get back on the field.
There you go.
No, I'm kidding. Well, yeah. Hey, Denver. Yeah, Denver's strength. They retained almost everyone from an 11-1 campaign. And their lone rookie is a 2-season minor league stud. So, not a big problem, I would say. And they don't change things up a whole lot. Jeremy, by his own admission, doesn't change things up a whole lot.
Right.
And so I think we're going to see the same thing. We're going to see a team that they know what they do. They know what they do well, and they're just going to do it. They've got all the pieces in place that made them good last season, and they could very well just keep rolling right along, except for the fact that they don't have last season's schedule. Right. And I saw people bag on them a little bit last season about their schedule, and I never hold someone's schedule against them. You don't have any control over that. You have to beat who you play, who you're scheduled. That you have to beat who's on your schedule. So, fine. But the fact of the matter is, they got to play Portland twice last season, I believe. Mm-hmm. And they got to play London, and it wasn't a real powerful looking schedule. And so if you went back in the history of the NFL, you'd find an awful lot of Super Bowl teams that didn't play anybody any good until they hit the playoffs. It's just how it happens sometimes. And I don't hold that against them. But yeah, they've got Sioux Falls twice. They've got Louisiana twice. Why do they have Louisiana twice? They're not in there.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. Yeah, I don't know. I think that was one of those changes that Cam had to make after the schedule came out to fix like 14 other changes or something.
Oh, okay. Well, it makes good TV. So
it makes great TV. But you're right. So Sioux Falls twice, Louisiana twice.
Exactly. Baltimore. They have Houston. Houston took some hits. But if Warren Murray goes wild, Houston could be awful, and then Warren Murray goes wild and they beat somebody. That just, you never know what you're going to get with that. That's you're lighting a firecracker and throwing it in the room there. You never know. Arizona, if Arizona makes a leap at all, they're going to be tough. And I'm with Greg. I think they are going to make a little bit of a leap this season. I saw somebody say that they need to go a little more ball control, and I agree with that. And so anyway, I'm not going to.
And they got to play a Vice Wars game on top of all that.
They do, and Vegas is a little bit of a wild card because they've had a lot of changes there. Their new offensive coordinator claims he's got the secret sauce, and so if that's true, then look out for them. So the fact of the matter is, there's also a lot of ifs on this schedule that Denver's got to navigate, and Portland is bound to be improved, and Portland played them really well last season. So
yeah, one of those games they did, yeah.
Right. So it could be my ending statement that I was saving for the end about them is that it's entirely possible that Denver could have a few more losses than they had last season and sort of be overlooked as they head into the playoffs and still be one of the most dangerous teams in the league. So, that was how I was going to end that.
When you look over their roster and you see 18 returning players from the number 1 seed that only lost 1 game in the regular season last season, then yeah, I mean, nobody wants to see Denver on their schedule either. You
No,
you still have
you're
Josh.
a fool.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you're a fool. If I'm sorry, forgive me. I just talked right over you.
That's all
You're
right.
a fool if you dismiss them at all. They're
Right.
going to come back just fine. No.
They are. I mean, so you got Josh Miller. You've got again another one of, and we say this a lot. There's just a lot of good running backs in this league, but McChesney's definitely up there. You've got the future Hall of Fame best kicker of all time in Kramer Jackman. You still have Bryce Battle. Giacomo Jones. I mean, it's. I'm looking at this. It's almost like an all-star team. I feel like I'm reading on the Denver roster. Oh, and by the way, and then we added Riley Quintero, who is a outstanding SFL minor league rookie. Where other than the schedule, coach, as you look this over, other than the schedule, does Denver have any weaknesses?
Not really. I don't think so. I think that it's just a matter of it's power creep. The other teams have probably caught up with them a little bit. If you recall that Jeremy, after they won, they kind of had to do some rebuilding. They lost a few people, and they were working on progressions and getting some people up to speed. And then last season, we saw that start to pay off, and you're going to see more of that again this season. Obviously, there were probably some people from last season that needed to progress a little bit. They're going to be better. As you pointed out, they kept 18 of them. That's a big deal. And Riley's going to slip right in, and I expect to see similar numbers for him that we saw from their number 3 last season.
Yeah, I could see him being up for offensive player or offensive rookie of the year this season, depending on how they use him.
It could happen, but Jeremy's not going to change things up just to make that happen, and so it's going to have to come within the flow of what they do already. But that's Denver. I mean, McChesney had an MVP caliber season last year, and people sort of didn't notice. Now, Reggie Streeter was having such a season; it was obvious. But McChesney, the season he had last year, was amazing, and Josh Miller will be just quietly taking what you give him, and then all of a sudden he'll rip your heart out. Charleston can attest to that. And so it's just like you mentioned all the names. These are names since I came into the league. Denver won it that season. These are names we've been seeing for a while, and they've stayed with Denver.
Yep.
And it's just, they may get ignored. Everybody's going to talk about Baltimore until they lose their first one, whenever that is. People are going to talk about some of the other teams around them, and then Denver's going to be there doing what Denver does. And we may get to midseason and we're like, well, here they come again. And you never know.
You're right. And we ran through some of the offensive names, but even looking at the defensive side, Marlon Marshall, right? Adam Wiseman, our boy Rosca Statman Santagria. I mean, they're just. I mean, the list just goes all the way down. Josh Vasquez, and they pick up Echo Love on top of it. I mean, I'm almost a little afraid to think that maybe Denver could even be better if they are able to play to the level of their schedule.
That if they were to go 11-1, 12-0, to me that's in the conversation for. Well, it'd be the best season I've personally seen since being in here, since being in the league. I didn't get to watch. I mean, I've watched all the games, but I didn't get to watch Florida's run when they were Alaska, and even so, that came against 12 players per team. It's just a different era. It was a different sort of, and I have felt like with 20 contract players, an undefeated season might be impossible just by the sheer randomness. They came close last season, didn't they?
Right. Yeah, they came really close.
I don't know. Okay. And you mentioned, you were talking about their defense. You didn't mention Des Troyer. If you watch Des Troyer, even if he doesn't get any stats, he's raising hell in the middle of the line. And so it's a stacked, tough team, well-built team. They're going to be a challenge.
Well, there you go, Jeremy Vega. No pressure. No pressure this year, bro. All right, Coach. Thank you. I'm going to move on to their Vice Wars rival over in Las Vegas and go back over to Bo Martin Jr. Bo, Vegas, a disappointing 4-8, but I think we've talked before on this show. My goodness, Vegas was in so many close games, but their biggest weakness last season was their red zone woes. Did they do enough to fix that for this season, or are we going to see another 4-8 Vegas team in season 16? Oh, Bo Martin Jr., you muted, bro. Hey, that's the first one I had to do tonight. What do you know?
My bad, dude. All right, so speaking of red zone woes, I wanted to talk before I go into what the positives are. I want to talk briefly about the negatives that happened with Las Vegas. Las Vegas had one of the most tumultuous off seasons probably of any of the teams in the SFL. You got to think about what they lost. They lost their quarterback, right? Tom Rahman, of course, everybody knows what Tom Rahman did when he went to Los Angeles to start his team, which is great for him. However, he took probably he was top 10 in yards over. He had over 3,500 yards, and he's gone. He's taken those yards and he's ran off to Los Angeles, and 68% completion rate, and that's gone as well. And then of course with Tom Rahman, you take Thomasina, one of the best cornerbacks in the game, and she goes with him. So that goes to what you were saying about the red zone woes, and that concerns me a little bit because they've lost Thomasina, and then they went and they replaced her with a rookie. Tom Krieg's going to have some big shoes to fill. They spent an early second round draft pick on Tom. And he's going to have some really big shoes to fill to try to shore up that defensive backfield. It concerns me a little bit, especially like you guys are saying, the division that they're playing in is really tough, and so that their defensive backfield gives me a little bit of pause.
So Tiberius Bovine, I think he comes over to be. I'm not sure if he's head coach or offensive coordinator, but sounds like he's going to run the offense. He's the one I think somebody mentioned that he said he's kind of figured things out. Let's say he does. Let's say for some reason you take a rookie quarterback and you're able to play him better than the veteran quarterback who left. Not likely, but possible. You've got, and I'm looking over the roster as we speak. Scott Johnson is no joke. You got great receivers in Mason Kirby. Blades is back. Doug Britton moves over to wide receiver from fullback. They seem to me, Bo, on paper, to have the weapons to play better, but will a rookie quarterback play better than a longtime veteran quarterback to get over those red zone woes and those scoring woes to win a few more games than 4 games like they did last season?
Yeah, that leads me perfectly into their strengths, because one of the strengths that I've had, was that, they've got some really great wide receivers. You look at their wide receiving core. Mason Kirby was an awesome receiver last year. John Blades, in my opinion, John Blades is one of the top 5 receivers in the SFL. And John Blades is going to keep doing what he does. And then all of a sudden you take Doug Britton, right? Okay. Probably one of the best WR3s in the SFL. Doug Britton was their fullback last year. I was talking to some of the guys in the Las Vegas locker room. They say this guy is probably one of the best team players in the league. He was willing to do whatever. He came in as a fullback, patiently waited for his position to blow, and he's been developing himself. And now he's going to be a dominant wide receiver 3. And so their wide receiving core is going to be one of the best in the league. So offensively, I think these guys are going to do really, really well. And then to top it all off, they went over to Kroger's and they looked in the grocery in the meat department, and they found Tiberius Bovine. And, he was retired, living the life. And here he comes. And he's like, yeah, I can bring all my coaching skills and my offensive play calling skills. I'll come on over and I'll help you guys out. So between those 3 receivers, and now with Tiberius Bovine, their offense is going to be good, and that's going to be important because of the rookie quarterback. They're going to have to do probably a lot more short passes, maybe some out routes or whatever, to try to help get Colin comfortable. Colin's no slouch. Colin was in some people's eyes, Colin was one of the best quarterbacks in the draft. So, but it is going to take him some time to get up to speed. But so hopefully for Tiberius, he's got some good play calls for Colin, just to give them, give him a little bit of time to get up to speed while Colin gets his SFL legs under him. But offensively, I think they'll be really good.
Yeah. So, and to add to that, A-Star Miramontes is also still there at tight end. So they've got 3 wide receivers and 2 tight ends on top of having Johnson as running back. So they've got the offensive tools. As I'm looking down the roster defensively, Eric Davis, Tank Hutt, who did I just see? Oh, Rhett Sawyer, of course. Who else is there? Slyn Shady. Can never forget about my boy Slyn Shady. Defensively, they look pretty solid as well. Tom Krieg is a rookie. He's going to have to fill into that defensive backfield. But they are one of the few teams, Bo, that are going to be rocking a kicker and a punter with the return of Dustin McRack. I guess he used to play for them, I don't know when, but apparently he was out for a while and he came back in. If you look at a team that was 4-8 that loses their longtime veteran quarterback, do you bring in a punter to help you with field position? Is that the thought process here? And by doing so, what did you give up offensively or defensively to fill that punter spot?
Yeah, and that was one of the reasons. If you notice here, I got him as I got Dustin McCrack as one of my most important impact players. Listen, when I first of all, kudos to Dustin McCrack. I spoke with some of the guys about Dustin McCrack. They said Dustin McCrack has the ability to be a game changer. Dustin McCrack is persistent. Some of the words they used was persistent, relentless, can affect the outcome of every game this season. So I'm sure Dustin McCrack is going to be important all season long, and I think that's why they made room for him on their roster because like I said, kudos on a brilliant name. Thank Dustin's mom for taking advantage of the last name McCrack, and so everybody loves Dustin McCrack. So.
Yep.
But yeah, that's going to be really important for them. And
Tom Robin says, keep saying Dustin McCrack.
And that was my goal. I have it on my notes here. Say Dustin McCrack at least 10 times. So
I think you got it. I think you got it, bro. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. So last question, and then I'll move on to Sioux Falls and Chad. If you still have the same red zone problems, though. I mean, obviously, listen, you bring a punter in to help you with field position. I get that. That makes sense. And you've got a great kicker in Otis that if you have to settle for field goals, you're gonna do that. But if you bring in a punter to help with field position, you still can't solve your red zone woes, then what's the point?
Yeah, and that's my biggest concern about the Fury. They've got these phenomenal interior defenders. Like Rhett Sawyer. Rhett Sawyer's a beast.
Oh, he is.
Slyn Shady. Of course, everybody knows. Slyn Shady at the outside linebacker is incredible. And so you've got those guys. And so, but the problem is, when you throw the deep ball, when you make that pass and you go into the backfield, once you get beyond Slyn Shady, what do you have? There's not going to be a Thomasina back there to help you out.
Right.
So, that's the biggest concern. So there's not many holes in Las Vegas. I expect them to do well, but that's one of the downfalls that I see for them. And the biggest downfall, which unfortunately is no fault of their own, is they play in what's my opinion, the toughest division in the SFL.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It's one of the toughest. Tom Rahman just made a point that Slyn moving from inside linebacker to outside linebacker is a huge move and could make an impact as well. Last note I'm going to make, Bo, is that, yes, I think they play in the toughest or second toughest division in the SFL, but, and I've said this 100 times before on this show and other places, I also feel like they have the best home field advantage in the SFL. So if they can solve their red zone woes and use that home field advantage, they could surprise us.
Yeah, we'll see. Oh, and by the way, Doug, before I go, Dustin McCrack.
You hear that, Doug Britton? There you go. Slyn and Rhett, same side would be awesome. There you go. All right. Bo, thank you, bro. Appreciate that. Let me get over to the last team we'll be talking about tonight, and then after that we will get to our predictions. Sioux Falls, Chad, this falls on you. This is second year in a row runner-up after an 11-4 season, including the playoffs. And now they lose, their fullback, but they don't even worry about it in free agency, and they go and pick up Charlemagne Cornelius as a fullback. So much like Denver, we talked about a second ago, and maybe even more, this is the exact same team that went to the championship game, and they've hardly made any changes.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, they, going into the season, we figured the Sioux Falls would probably retain almost everybody. Jalen Wells going to San Diego, I think was a really good move for San Diego. Getting that player that has learned behind Colin Hart how to be a running back, that's a key piece. But my kind of thing with Sioux Falls is, how is the rookie fullback going to work in that system? Is he going to be able to be as productive as Jalen Wells was as a fullback? I don't think so. I don't think it's going to hurt them that much, but it could hurt them just a little bit.
Well, I mean, Jalen Wells is a huge loss, I think, right? I mean, not only because, I don't think he had crazy stats, but, his presence in the locker room, he does block for Colin Hart. He catches some passes out of the backfield. There's a lot of tools there that Charlemagne will have some rookie time to catch up to do all that. So does that affect Sioux Falls out the gate? And if it does that hurt them down the rest of the season because they play in such a tough division?
It could. I think they are going to maybe stumble on that part of it at the gate because, as you said, Jalen Wells was a guy that was able to block, open up some holes for Colin Hart. He was able to come out of the backfield, make some catches. He is going to stumble. He is a rookie a little bit. Do I think it affects them down the road? Probably not. Now, I think that if I remember correctly, when they went to the championship game, I'm trying to remember, was Jalen a rookie last year?
No, 2 years ago, I believe.
2 years ago, that's right. So, and look how productive he was last season, compared to the season before, and then he ends up getting to the championship. That could be kind of the same fate that Charlemagne has for this season at Sioux Falls. But like I said, they're one of the better teams in the SFL. For God's sakes, they made the championship game this past season. So I don't see them hurting that much, but it may take a little bit of time for him to get caught up.
So here's the deal, Chad. I'm looking up and down this, this roster of theirs. It's every single familiar name that everybody already knows. It's Dillapre, it's Warren, it's Wilson, it's Tyree, it's Fargo, it's Fuentes, it's Hart, it's Barnett, it's Lewis, Parker, Kelly, Davis. Ringgold, Barnhart. All of them except for one. So here is my question, though. If you get to the championship game 2 seasons in a row and you bring back 19 of 20 players, but that 20th player isn't maybe as good as the player that he's replacing, how do you improve your team to get over that hump and win the championship?
To me, you may have to make some changes on the in the offensive playbook. The defense, like I said, is going to be solid because they retain everybody. They're all veterans. They're going to be one of the best defenses in the SFL. But with like I said, to get back to that championship game, you're going to have to change things up a little bit because, face it, the other teams, except for really Baltimore, have made a little bit of changes that have improved their team.
Right.
So you have to keep up. Now, does that, with these new teams getting new players, does that help those guys out? Of course it does. But does it hurt Sioux Falls that they didn't go pick up or try to improve in any area? Probably not, because, like I said, they're still a good team.
They're still Sioux Falls, right? They are who we think they are, right? That whole thing.
Exactly.
I'm just saying, if you're trying to get over that hump and win a championship, and you're now put into what most people think is the toughest division in all of the SFL, you got to improve your team to try to go over that hump. Now, you're right. Maybe Sioux Falls does that via coaching or via play calling or something else, which would be great to see, and I hope they do it. I'm a little concerned for them being in that division and trying to even get back to the championship game next season, to be honest with you, Chad.
I agree. Because look. You have Denver, who's going to be a playoff team, I believe. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of trying to keep pace if you're going to be able to get a better seed than them or not. We'll go over more of this in the the prediction for the division, obviously. But like I said, offensively wise for Sioux Falls, they looked pretty good in that championship game. It was just Baltimore's time. It really was. Being the former GM of Baltimore, I knew that it was going to be their time. But in the end, like I said, I mean, for Charlemagne to get caught up, but you know what? If you strike while it's hot and going into the playoffs, that's all that matters.
Bo Martin Jr. typing Dustin McCrack now, so I'll say it on air. Attaboy, Bo. All right. Before we get into our predictions, any last thoughts or anything on Sioux Falls that we didn't cover, Chad?
No, I think we hit pretty much everything that was going to be talked about with Sioux Falls. I mean, this is the same team as they were last season. They just replaced their fullback. They're a championship caliber team. We're looking for them to make another deep run into the playoffs in season 16. So I think we covered all bases.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Well, we'll see what Sioux Falls has up their sleeves to try and get over that hump that we talked about. All right, everybody. It's prediction time. We're going to have the panelists predict these two divisions, as I'm trying to find the correct graphic. We will start with the Pacific Division. And Bo Martin Jr., I'm going to start with you. Doug Britton says 4 out of the West. That would be amazing. If any division can get 4 teams in, that's probably one of them. I don't think it's possible, but it would be something to see. Bo Martin Jr., and I'm going to ask you guys, I'm not going to have you tell me all of them in one thing. I'm going to go down the thing. Bo, who's going to win the Pacific Division in season 16?
Not for anything, and this isn't an insult because they're all NFL teams, I'm talking about the NFC East.
Right.
This particular division reminds me a bit of the NFC East. And so, I do believe Vancouver's going to win this division. However, I do believe once they get to the playoffs, they're going to run into some really tough competition.
Okay. Coach, who wins the Pacific?
I think Vancouver, but if they slip even just a little bit, LA is going to be there to pounce.
Okay. Chad, what do you think about Pacific Division?
It's like coaches in my mind. I was just thinking the same thing. I mean, it's Vancouver's division to lose. If they end up losing this division, I mean, Andy just needs to put his team up for sale.
Oh, snap. There you go. I'll see if I can get Winkler to clip that. We'll put that on the website. Greg Soto, who wins the Pacific Division in season 16?
Yeah, Vancouver, and same sentiments that Chad said. If Vancouver cannot win that division, then something needs to happen.
Okay. And Gunny, are you with us?
I am.
I would love to get your prediction as well. Who wins the Pacific Division?
Nate Hall's going to be carrying his wife on his shoulders with the Vancouver Pacific Division banner.
All right. There you go. Let me go back to the top now, Bo. Bo, who finishes last in the Pacific Division?
Wow. Okay. This is a tough one. I think we all can agree we've got Vancouver and LA at the top. So essentially, what we're looking at is who between San Diego and Portland, who finishes at the bottom. Portland, San Diego did really well bringing over players. I just don't know that it's going to be enough to keep them out of the basement. None of these teams are going to finish, in my opinion, with a 0-12 or 1-11, or even I don't even think any of these teams finish at 3-9. But I'm going to put San Diego in the basement.
Okay, Coach, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Partly because I'm rooting for Portland, but I'm going to put Vancouver in the basement.
You're going to put who in the basement?
Sorry, brain cramp. I've had concussions. Remember?
That's all right.
San Diego. I looked at the screen and the Vancouver thing just caught my eye. San Diego. I'm going to put San Diego in the basement.
Gotcha. All right, Chad, who finishes last in the Pacific Division in season 16?
Yeah, I gotta agree with everybody else. I mean, my thing with San Diego is about the quarterback play. Watching, granted, Javier Vasquez was a rookie, but he just did not look great to me in St. Louis. So him coming over to San Diego, with the weapons he's got, I mean, hopefully he'll improve. But to me, it's San Diego.
Okay, Greg, where do you come out with this in the basement of the Pacific?
Yeah, I think it's San Diego. And Tom Rahman, yeah, we have some love for you, man. Come on. We're not picking you to win, some of us, but we're not picking you to lose either. So, Tom Rahman in the chat.
I know, I saw that.
But yeah, I think San Diego, and I will kind of disagree with Bo. I think San Diego will go 3-9. and
Okay.
they'll be in the basement. Yep.
Okay. And Gunny, where do you see? Who do you see finishing last in the Pacific?
I got Portland and San Diego maybe being like 4-8, 5-7, but I got Portland beating San Diego in a head-to-head match. So San Diego be in the basement.
Okay. So our panelists have everybody has Vancouver winning. Everybody has San Diego losing or finishing last. Last question for this division before we move on to the West. Bo, how many teams out of this division make the playoffs, and who are they?
Vancouver makes the playoffs.
That's it?
Yes, sir. That's
okay.
it.
Coach?
I think it's just one. It's hard to know for sure without looking, because I didn't look in depth at the rest of the team's schedules. No, you know what? No, I'm going to say two. I'm going to say LA can get in there. Looking at their schedule, I said there are a lot of ifs. If all those ifs go the right way, LA's in the playoff too.
Okay. Chad, what do you think? 1, 2, 3? How many out of the Pacific make the playoffs this season?
I'm glad that Coach said what he said, because I was getting ready to just start up with, it's the rise of the Lycans. I mean, to me, man, I got to tell you, I mean, I love what LA did. You know, you have, Tom Rahman and Ray Ray running the show. Sully Richardson coming over, had an all-star season, by the way. Sully Richardson did. Coming over, running that defense, plus being the quarterback, the weapons they got, putting the Crim Reaper down there on the defensive line. I think it's a lock that LA is in the playoffs.
A lock? Wow. I'm writing that down. I'm going to go back to that. A lock. All right. Just like Ray Ray predicted that Harish wouldn't get hurt all season, that's going to be my thing to check with you at the end of the season. Greg, what do you think? How many teams from the Pacific make the playoffs?
Man, for sure Vancouver. I think Vancouver's going to go 8-4. Then for me, I have the Lycans going 6-6.
So you think 6-6 makes the playoffs, or do you think it's a 7-5 season?
I think it's going to be a 7-5 season makes the playoff. But again, me putting them 6-6, I really wish, I hope they do. For my boy Sully, shout out to him from AC Miami Azul and the SSF. But he's also on the Lycans. I hope he can make it into the playoffs. I'm rooting for him. But I think 7-5 is going to be the cutoff. But I do have them going 6-6. And unfortunately, Portland, I have them 5-7. So I don't think they're going to go. But for sure, Vancouver.
Okay. And Gunny, how many teams out of the Pacific make the playoffs this season?
It's 2 because the revamped Chicago Wildcats are going to have a rebounding season and they're going to make it in the playoffs.
So you say Vancouver and LA are going to make it for sure?
Yes, I'd like to see LA in the playoffs. Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's move our attention over to, if I can find it, the West. Bo, I'm going to start with you again. We've pretty much coined this the toughest division in the SFL for season 16. So who wins this toughest division?
Gosh. Okay. This one is like I said, it's the toughest division. So Sioux Falls, like you said, they went to the chip. This is their second year in a row going to championship. It's really tough to bet against Sioux Falls. But Denver has made some amazing, like they already were a great team, and it seems like they got even better somehow. There's not many holes in this division at all altogether, but winning the division, I think I'm just changing this from Sioux Falls at the last minute, but I think I'm gonna go Denver.
All right. So you were prepared to tell me Sioux Falls, but after talking about all these teams tonight on the show, you change it to Denver.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go Denver.
Okay. All right.
Final answer.
Final answer. Gotcha. Coach?
First of all, I'm going to take credit for changing Bo's mind. I'm a fantastic salesman, apparently. I'm in the wrong business. I pick Sioux Falls to win the division. And yes, I'm a Sioux Falls fanboy. I understand. But I pick Sioux Falls to win the division.
You pick Sioux Falls for everything, though.
Eventually, I'm going to be right. Here's the thing. Everybody's talking about some things needing to change. Do you change things? I don't know why you change things. There's only one team that's been to the last 2 championships, and that's Sioux Falls. They ran into a team of destiny 2 seasons ago. Atlanta was just, better than everybody else. And last season, just a couple of things go the other way, and they're walking away with that thing. And it's just some tweaking. It just needs some subtle tweaking. This is not the time to panic. I think Sioux Falls is going to do that this season.
So, all right. So, you know what? I know we're doing predictions, Coach, but I gotta ask you a follow up then. So, in your heart of hearts, in your football mind of football minds, you honestly think that Sioux Falls, with the exact same team they had last year, and I'm not trying to be hard on Sioux Falls. I'm just trying to get a straight answer out of you.
Mm-hmm.
But lesser at one position, and that's it. Let's call it that.
But it just requires a little bit of tweaking. You're asking why on earth I would do that? Why they're a little bit less. It requires a little bit of tweaking. You're not going to run the ball quite as much with Charlemagne at first. And what I've been saying for a couple of seasons is Sioux Falls need to put the same level of thought into their passing game that they do into their running game. It seems to be Sioux Falls will run, and if they get stopped, then it's gun straight, chuck that sucker.
I think that could. Here's the problem I see with that thought process, though, is if they struggle with the run, and maybe they don't. I mean, Colin Hart's still Colin Hart, but if they do and they lose a few games at the beginning of the season in this division, it may be hard to make it up on the back end.
Well, that is true, and just the way things are set now, you could have a very good team not make the playoffs because of how things go in their own division, and then you have some other division where the number 3 team gets in because it's a bunch of hot garbage or something. I mean that I don't know for sure about that, but that could happen. They can't afford this. This is one thing about their division right now, is that they can't afford to fool around for very long.
Right.
And so, my opinion could change in a hurry just depending on how their circumstances are. But I don't think it's time to panic on something like that. If it's me, I'm not running nearly as many fullback dives and stuff. He'll get some swing passes and whatnot, but it's like you're going to block a lot. And I go back and I take a look at the teams that don't have a lot of turnovers. No. Let me rephrase that. I take a look at the few teams that have a good touchdown to interception ratio on their quarterbacks, and I see what they're doing differently than we are. And that's it.
Okay.
And then I roll. And I would bet.
I think another concussion just happened.
I think we could do a whole show just on Sioux Falls. As a matter of fact, speaking of that, we're almost done here. We're going to do a few more predictions, and then we'll be done. But if anybody wants to stay on after dark and wants to argue any of the stuff that we talked about tonight, or come on the show and give their predictions and why or whatever, let me know. Jump in the green room, and I'll get you in. Sorry that took so long, Chad. I know you're waiting next, but I had to get some clarification from Coach. Who wins the so far coined toughest division in the SFL?
I mean, it is going to be the toughest division in the SFL. I mean, when you have teams like Sioux Falls and Denver in there, I mean, it's tough. Here's something that I don't know if anybody's thrown out there, and I probably should have done it when I talked about Sioux Falls, but as you said before, I really didn't have a lot of time to prepare for the night. With Julian Tyree, now that you have the quarterback changes to where they improve their scrambling. And he, to me, was probably the best quarterback in the SFL when it came to running the ball. That could be a factor, too. You might be able to sneak in some plays where his rating wasn't so great. Now it's actually a lot better, and being able to scramble more outside the pocket and may take that and run it himself. So, having that factor in, that could be a key piece. But I got to go with Sioux Falls winning the division. And it's not going to be by much. I think Denver's up there too. They're 1A and 1B in my mind, but to me, it's going to be Sioux Falls.
All right, Greg, where do you come down in all this madness?
Mile High Club.
Mile High
No
Club.
fiction. Denver.
Just straight up Denver, huh?
Yeah, I think so. I think Denver's going to go 9-3. I think they will lose just a couple of games than they did last year. But yeah, I think it's going to be Denver.
Okay.
Though I do think once you start asking, our next follow-up questions, with the panel, it is going to be close because, this, like we've been saying, this division. But I think Denver takes it at a 9-3 record.
Okay. Gunny, where do you stand on this division?
I'm going to go ahead and take Denver, but out of Denver and Sioux Falls, one of these two will be in the Final Four.
Okay. Final Four. Got it. All right. So my next question, just like I asked for the Pacific Division, who finishes in the bottom in this division? Bo Martin Jr.
Oh gosh, you're gonna make me go first. Okay, so
You're going first every time, bro.
I know, but this is the hardest part.
Alphabetical order, man.
You've
You need to change your name to Vo Martin Jr.
Yeah, just call me Zoe Martin Jr.
Zoe Martin Jr. There you go.
You got 4 phenomenal teams, and I believe all 4 of these teams finished with winning records. So I want to say that first of all, or at least at 500. I'll put it that way. So I think it's clear the 2 favorites are going to be Sioux Falls and Denver to win the division. It would not surprise me to see 3 teams get in. But of course, that leaves 1 team in the basement. So if 3 teams get in, that means 1 has to be in the basement. Now, and the reason why I'm choosing this team is because I figure that, with all things being equal, it comes down to quarterback play. And this particular team is going to be playing quarterback with a rookie quarterback. So it's going to take some time for Colin to get up to speed. So it's not a knock against Las Vegas. They've got a great team. They've made some definite strides forward. But I'm going to put Vegas in the basement.
Okay. Before I go on to Coach, I just saw Mighty talking about the scrambling situation. It looks like Chad responded already, but Mighty said scrambling pertains to throwing on the run, not running the ball. Chad said, yeah, it's saying if he has to scramble and then run on his own, then he has the speed now to do that, and that could be a factor. I haven't seen a response yet from Mighty. And you know what? That you never know. It's the smallest things that make the difference, right? They could put somebody over the hump. So let me see who's next. Coach, who finishes in the basement in the West?
This one's a little bit painful because I've got friends over there, a lot of friends over there. But I've got a lot of friends in this division, so it was going to be painful no matter what. I think because of the unknowns, I've got Vegas in the basement over there.
Okay.
Arizona has a lot of good players, and like we were saying, if they can just figure out that offense, then all of a sudden they're a scary team. So
okay, Chad.
Yeah, I got to agree with Coach. I mean, Vegas with the unknowns and Eddie Gage now having a full season of offense under his belt. Ben Simmons, he's one of the hardest working guys in the SFL. Simmons and getting that offense ready for the season. I got to go with Vegas being in the bottom.
All right, Greg, do you agree with the other 3, or are you going somewhere else?
Yeah, and I think it's going to be bad. I mean, I hope Las Vegas doesn't have anybody that has a show too, because I probably won't be invited there to any of that show. Yeah, I think Vegas is going to be down. I disagree with Bo. I don't think it's going to be a winning record. I think they're going to go 3-9.
Okay, and then Gunny, who do you think is going to finish last in the West?
Just with the overall turnover ratio compared to the other teams, will be Las Vegas.
Okay. All right, Bo Martin Jr., back to you, and this is the last set of predictions we have going on for tonight. How many teams from this division make the playoffs, and which ones?
At least 2. At least 2. I think that it's a shoo-in for 2. Denver and Sioux Falls. The bubble is going to be Arizona, and it's going to depend on like was said earlier. It's going to depend on the play of Ashley, which I got a feeling she's going to do great, and then Eddie's going to do his thing on defense. So at least 2, maybe even 3.
Okay, Coach, do you agree with Bo, or where do you see that coming out?
I see 2. I'd love to see Arizona in there as well, but I think there's just too much quality in front of them, and they could have a really good season and still not make the playoffs. So I'm going to say 2.
Okay. Chad, what about you?
Yeah, I would love to say Arizona's in. I mean, but I just only see the 2 getting in there, Sioux Falls and Denver. I mean, I'd be ecstatic if Arizona got in, and it's going to be tough for them too with all the other divisions and who else gets in as well. But to me, it's just Sioux Falls and Denver.
Okay. Greg Soto.
All right. They say that this is going to be an exciting division. I say not only is it going to be exciting, it's going to be titillating, because not only will Sioux Falls make it, Denver make it, but if Ashley Jackson and Eddie get everything right, they will go from 5-7 to 7-5 and get into the playoffs. Getting 3 teams into the playoffs makes this division the most titillating division in the SFL.
Okay, but are you predicting 3 teams or are you predicting 2? You
I'm
said
predicting-
if
I'm
Arizona.
predicting 3. I'm
You are
predicting 3.
Okay.
I'm predicting 3.
All right, got it. All right. And last but not certainly least, the very last prediction of the evening, unless anybody has anything for After Dark or wants to jump on and talk about anything we've talked about tonight. I'd like to keep the topic to this if we can. I don't want to go off on other tangents. I'd like to really just talk about divisions and predictions and things like that if we're going to do an After Dark. All right, Gunny, you've got the last word tonight. What do you got?
I'm confident with 2. Would love to see 3. Would love to see my hometown girl, Ashley, in the playoffs, and Mr. What Up Doe. But who knows what's going to happen in this division. Bashing each other's heads back and forth in interleague play.
So just to give kind of a recap, everybody thinks Vancouver, everybody thinks Denver, and everybody thinks Sioux Falls, with LA and Arizona being on the bubble. So that's what we've accomplished this evening. So what we're going to do is as we go on to these other shows and start keeping track, we're going to have to, I mean, we can only have so many playoff teams. So if every panel says, "Oh, there's going to be 3 teams," we're going to have there's too many teams for the playoffs. There's not enough for that. Ray says no predictions from Dave Axis. I never make predictions on this show. You guys know that. I never do pick'ems. I never make predictions other than to say, you know, in the course of the show, once in a while I'll throw out, yeah, exactly, Mighty, right? Playoffs for everyone. Everybody gets a participation trophy and everybody makes the playoffs. Yay, team. I don't like to. I like to try to be the one unbiased person on the panel and on the show if possible. That's why I do that, Ray. Just a little FYI. I've got the After Dark banner up. I don't know. I don't see anybody in the green room. Let me see if anybody typed anything that they have any questions or any predictions. Mighty, I think this is the longest I've seen you stick around for a whole show. What do you think about these predictions? Do you want to come on or you want to just type it in there? What do you think about these predictions that you just heard tonight? Oh, and I think it looks like the Crim Reaper's in the house. So as I'm waiting for the answer from Mighty, they're okay. Don't elaborate too much, Mighty. I will put, here we see. Dwayne says, just want to give a shout out of prayers and well wishes to all members of the SFL who are either themselves or know someone suffering from COVID-19. Yeah, actually, Dwayne, I was going to say this in my closing, but I guess I might as well just say now since you brought it up. Hopefully I can get through this, but it's not, I found out a couple nights ago, 2 nights ago, I think, actually, that my youngest son actually does have COVID-19. And what sucks the most about that is that he's 2,400 miles away in California. So I'm nonstop texting him and bugging him, like a dad would. But my boy, his name is Drew, by the way. He got the results, and he said within 1 minute he was on the phone to me to let me know. And so if you think about it, if you wouldn't mind mentioning my kid, along with Doug Day and his wife still, Kramer Jackman, I think there were a few others that I don't really remember right now, that have come across either having COVID or somebody in their family. Dwayne, thanks for bringing that up. I was going to touch on it at the end, but since you brought it up, I thought I'd throw it out right there. So thank you, everybody, for your thoughts and prayers for my kid, and mine go out to any of you that are affected as well. So thank you for that. So, all right, let's get back to all right, the Crim Reaper. Oh, hold on. Let me get him in here. All right, so Andre Crim, the Crim Reaper, defensive end for LA, is in the house, and he's got something to say about these predictions. First of all, Andre, welcome back to the show. How you doing, bro?
Not bad, not bad.
What do you got? What do you got for me? What do you got to say?
Vancouver's going to be a tough out. We all know that. We're going to play them twice. But Pepper's a pick machine.
Okay, so what are you predicting? You play him twice. Are you going to split with him?
I think we'll split with them, and I think we'll get between 8 and 10 wins.
So you think LA's going to be between 8 and 10 wins? Does that give you the division, or does that put you second to Vancouver?
Well, it depends on how Vancouver does it, you know.
Well,
But
are you predicting that you guys will win the division is what I'm asking.
I think we'll make the playoffs.
Okay. All right. So you think you're going to win 8 to 10 games. You think you're going to make the playoffs. You think you're going to split with Vancouver. Those are some pretty bold predictions there, mister.
Well, here's another one. I'm going to put Pepper on his butt 3 times during the season.
Oh, that's what I love to hear. So here we go. Shots fired. Looks like Vancouver's on notice and Peppers, you're on notice. So I can't wait to hear as the shows continue over the next week with the other two preview and prediction shows, how that comes back. All right, Andre, thanks for chiming in. We've got, we didn't have enough Lone Star people in the house. So we thought we'd add one more and bring the owner of the glorious Lone Star Glory in. Charles, welcome back to the show. What's up?
Hey, how's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
What a great show. I'm serious, man. You're knocking it out of the park again. I just a lot of great predictions, a lot of smart people on your panel, but also a lot of Lone Star coaches that probably should be simming some games right now. That's all I got to say. And good night.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on to let me know about that. I appreciate that.
I told you I'm running a sim right now, Charles.
I want to jump back to the chat for a second. Hold on. I want to see if anybody responded to what Krim said. And yes.
Hey, if anybody has a tetanus shot ready, please come find me.
Okay.
After being in here with all these LSG people.
Oh, get out of here. Krim calling out Pepper, bold stuff. Tell Krim not to get me started, said Nate Hall. Mighty, I don't know if Charles is in his robe. You'll have to ask him that. Thank God we're not on camera, though. Give Charles more airtime. He doesn't want more airtime, Ray. I'm telling you. Let me see here. And thank you everybody that's sending prayers for my kid. I really appreciate that. And then I want to scroll back up. I just saw Doug Britton is asking for prayers for his daughter as well in the hospital on a ventilator, but non-COVID related. So Doug Britton, we will definitely add you to the thoughts and prayers list for sure. Eddie Gage was trying to get in here. But every time I move him into the Showtime room, he keeps bouncing out. So, Eddie Gage, is that because you can't talk yet, or what's going on? I hear your blinkers, so I know you're driving.
And he's gone.
And he's gone again. So maybe, wow, will this be like 2 consecutive shows without Eddie Gage on? That might be a record. I don't know. We'll see. All right. Well, does anybody else? Go ahead.
Can I ask a question to Krim? Yeah, Krim's still in here, right? I predicted obviously LA to go into the playoffs, but I just have to ask where the 8 wins will come from. Like he was saying 8 to 9 wins, so just out of curiosity.
Krim, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
So where are you getting these 8 to 10 wins? Is what Chad is asking you.
Just out of curiosity.
Well, I think we're going to get 3 in the division.
Okay. So then you need 5 to 7 more outside the division. Who are some of the teams that you play that you think you'll get these wins against?
Alrighty, let me pull up the schedule here.
I don't have LA's schedule handy in front of me.
I got it in front of me.
All right.
I think we can beat Houston. I think we can beat Vegas. I think we can beat Florida. I think we can beat Queen City.
Hey, Mighty, hold on. Mighty, did you hear that? Okay, go on. Wait, what's the last one after Florida?
Queen City.
Queen City. Okay, so that's 4. And then what are your in-division wins going to be?
Portland, San Diego, and one versus Vancouver.
Okay, so that gets you to 7. So you need 1 to 3 more to get to 8 to 10. Do you see anybody else on there you think you can beat?
Yeah, Atlanta.
So there's your 8th win. Okay. Do you see potential? Do you see potential teams for victories 9 and 10, or do you think 8's going to be it?
Well, we might be able to beat Carolina.
Okay. So
this is great. I'm just giving you. I'm looking at that schedule. Okay, so you split Vancouver. If you can beat Jacksonville in week 9 at home, I mean, that'll be amazing. But again, it's Jacksonville. Beating Atlanta away, oof, that's a little toughy. Having to, I think honestly, you're going to lose against L.A. I mean, Los Angeles. You're going to lose against Vancouver. I know Queen City. Queen City plays differently at home than they do away. You play them away. I believe. I have you, Krim, at 6-6. Now, if the playoff bubble is 6-6, then great, you make it to the playoffs. But man, I see some really tough games here away as well. I mean, away from your division.
Dude, Mighty in the chat was kind of funny. He said everyone thinks they can beat us until they don't. So 6-6 is what Greg thinks on LA. I think the consensus so far is probably 7-5 gets a team into the playoffs for sure. But again, who knows? I mean, last season, I think was 7-5 or 6-6 the break off point. I don't remember, but I'm guessing it'll probably be about the same. Let me look real quick and see. Eddie Gage is gone, so I don't think we're going to get Eddie on after all tonight. So let me see anybody else in the chat that wants to chime in. Actually, I said it a year ago than we did. Ooh, per Coco, was that to Mighty? Nice. I guess that's about it. Tom is depositing money to cover for the checks that Crim's Bud is writing. That's hilarious.
And then Ray saying he better have his own money.
He has to have his own damn money for those checks. Attaboy, Crim. Way to call people out, though. Way to be bold on the show and come on here. Oh, Nate doesn't want me to leave yet. He said, hold on. What do you got for me, Nate? What am I waiting for? What am I holding on for? Are you coming on the show to
See, now you ignited the Vancouver people. So.
Respond to Crim or... Coco said, I didn't clear this for Nate to come on. Oh, all right, there we go. Let me see. Ladies and gentlemen, probably the last guest we'll have on tonight from the Vancouver Legion, Mr. Nate Hall is with us. Nate, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing good. Just enjoying your show as always.
Well, I appreciate that. What did you want to come on? I'm assuming it's in response to what Crim said about splitting games with you in Vancouver?
It's just a bold statement, but I don't think the league is ready for what Kendra's going to bring to the table this year. Getting Kendra as our wide receiver, she's going to put up some numbers that a lot of people aren't going to believe or be ready for.
So are you predicting then that we're going to see the Kendra that we saw in the playoffs versus the regular season? Because let's be honest, Kendra didn't have a great regular season, but she blew it up in the playoffs.
Absolutely. That momentum that she had at the very end of the season is just going to carry over, and it's going to spread like wildfire.
Okay. And then what about yourself? It looks like you're playing the nickel back there on the defense. How are you feeling about making your move from was it offensive line last season?
Yeah, I was offensive line, and I'm going to strong safety number 2 behind Major Key. So I'll be on the field for nickel situations. Like you said, but I'm giving myself low expectations, maybe 10 to 15 tackles, a couple pass deflections. But I'm looking forward to watching the offense light it up this season.
Well, that'll be interesting, especially adding Andy Hamilton in there as well. Plus, you guys you still have Brett Killian, obviously, so he's always great. And
DK's always a beast.
And Dan Daly at tight end. I mean, so you definitely always have the weapons in Vancouver, that's for sure. So, and I'm sure I speak for most of us. We'd love to see Kendra have a great season, just not against our team. So, all right, Nate. Good luck.
Absolutely.
Good luck this season, bro. Thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. I think that's going to do it for us. So that was show 1 of 3, discussing the predictions and the previews for all of the divisions. We knocked out a third of them tonight in the Pacific and the West: LA, Portland, San Diego, Vancouver, Arizona, Denver, Las Vegas, and Sioux Falls. Next we will have, let me think if I have it here, on Thursday we will talk about the South, the Tex-Mex division. Yes, after party at my house. Bring it, Charles. And then we'll talk about the East, which geographically looks very interesting on the map. It's not the most eastern division, But it's an interesting division nonetheless. So Thursday we'll talk about the South and the East. Next Tuesday we'll talk about the Atlantic and the North. And to be honest with you, I think the Atlantic will give the West a run for its money when it comes to toughest division, having Jacksonville, Florida, Carolina, and Charleston all in the same division. So we can debate that next week. I will see you in a little less than 48 hours on Thursday night, 9 p.m., right here on Twitch. Thoughts and prayers to everyone dealing with COVID, and Doug Britton, to your daughter, whatever she is dealing with. I'm hoping everybody gets well soon, and maybe even it'd be great to have everybody healthy for the beginning of the season for opening weekend. So thank you again for tuning in, everybody in the chat. You guys know I love you guys. You know I love the interactions in there. And then special thanks to Bo Martin Jr., Coach Craven, Chad Rowland, Greg Soto, and of course the wisest man in the SFL, Gunny, for being on the show tonight. So that's it. That's a wrap, party people. We'll see you here in a little less than 48 hours, Thursday night, 9 p.m., right here on Twitch. Have a glorious evening. I'll see you at the tees.